Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest Yeovil Town interview. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Assistant Manager and Academy Manager Terry Skiverton. Terry, how are you?
Yes, very good, thank you. How are you, Sam?
Not too bad, thank you at all. I think it's probably the best place to start would be the coronavirus and say it's put a stop to everything. You're one of the busiest, if not the busiest man at the club, running the academy and helping out with first team football as well. How's this affected you personally?
Yeah, I mean, it sort of affected me at the beginning because everybody and all the staff was furloughed, but because of um, the delicate nature of younger players and how it's all funded by the Premier League, that I had to be taken off of furlough. So at the moment, I'm still working for the football club to make sure that how we move forward as an academy, along with the EFL and what we're trying to do to make the academy sustainable. There's still a lot of paperwork and there's still a lot of things that we've got to go through with registrations and trying to make it work for next season. So at the moment, I'm working every day.
What's been the major impact on the academy then? And say, obviously, there's no football being played, but aside from that, what's kind of been the major impact?
I just think that everybody's staying at home with lockdown. So our welfare officer it's really been put onto sort of that side of stuff, that we just put out stuff like psychological workshops and just things to get their minds active and little bits and pieces. But really under lockdown, some people might be living in flats and houses. How long can you get out for? You can't really go to a local park and if it is busy, where it's there's a lot of factors that are really sort of you've got to sort of really think about. And for us, it's just mental well-being. So we've just been making sure that we tick the boxes with that area.
Indeed. For the second year scholars especially, this is going to be kind of an uncertain time for them. What's this kind of meant for them, and say their hopes of maybe advancing onto the first team?
Yeah, but the decisions have been made. I think it's the third Saturday of this month. We've had a few technical board meetings with the owners, so the decisions will come obviously after they finish their college work. So it's an important time for them. But this is unprecedented what's happened, and we need to make sure we make the right decisions with the second years. And when the time's right, we'll have the decisions to see if we are offering out professional contracts, and then looking at the exit routes for the players that might not get professional contracts. So that's the reason why I've been taken off of furlough, because there's still a hell of a lot of work to be going on with the academy.
Prior to the lockdown, though, the under-18s were in great form. I think it was 8 wins from their last 10 games. How much confidence does that give you in them being able to come back and get straight back into it and say the impact you've made on them?
Yeah, I mean, I think Mark Challen and especially Mark Jones have done a fantastic job. I think the players you've seen come to the forefront, there's been some excellent performances and some real eye-catching individual performances. So we've had a couple of the players that's travelled with the first team this year. Devon Arnold and Declan Rose as well has been in with the first team squad. Dec actually got on, I think, in one of the cup competitions. So yeah, it's been a positive year, but with this that's happened, and it's, as I said before, it's unprecedented. We don't know whether we'll be coming back and playing. We don't know whether there'll be playoffs or whether the season will be over. There's still a hell of a lot of stuff that's up in the air. We don't know if this season will be just null and void with maybe no promotions, no relegation. So there's so many connotations of what could happen. What I'm having to do is make sure that I'm on standby, so that when a decision is made, that we can then go and make real good, positive, informed decisions. And sometimes when you're coming out and you don't know the facts, it makes your position look weaker. I mean, we've heard rumours from the National League that this is going to happen, that's going to happen, let us come out. And I think sometimes that just creates more confusion. So no news is good news. And what we have to do is just make sure that when the time's right and when the decision's made, that we as an academy can then react off of that.
Moving on to a slightly lighter subject then, what's your week by week at Yeovil Town now? Because obviously, say you're a very busy man balancing first team and academy duties.
Yeah, I think it'll be the morning is spent with the first team, and then when the afternoon will then come, I will move from the first team office. Then I will go over to the academy office. We'll have our academy meeting on a Monday with the staff. We'll go through things, and then we'll stay to the early evening. We'll go through training, make sure that the week's set out or the months have set out as well after that, and then we'll gauge our training around the games. And at the end of last year, myself and Jamie Harrison, we presented and put together our own syllabus so that we're working off of what we would like and what the manager of the first team would like, the way the academy to run. And along with Kevin Hodges, who's the new head of coaching, the coach development side of stuff has been really coming to the forefront and working as well. So, we've had some really good performances and some good results against some very good local teams. And the academy has got itself right up to a very good standard.
Having your experience as a manager as well, then, is it important for you to be able to see it from that perspective, to think, right, I want a player to come through this academy so he can be useful for the first team as well?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of everything. I mean, when you're looking at our pre-academy, then you've got the under 9s, under 10s, under 11s. A lot of it's geared around on, we call it sweat, smile and learn. So it's a lot softer. We want them to enjoy it. We want them to take on the basics of nailing down 1v1s, attacking and defending, 2v2s, 3v3s, and it starts to build up. And then the older they get, it starts to we're starting to look at them now down a position. Now we're starting to get into 8v8, 7v7s, 8v8s, 9v9s, and then progressing up to our 11v11 for the 16s. And that's where it starts to get a little bit more serious, where they're from 14 to 16. That's just their the prerequisite of trying to get them to become scholars. So, and then the scholarship is where we look to professionalise them and see if they're going to be ready to go on to the next stage, which will be becoming a pro. And then becoming a pro, you go out on loan. And then the end of the journey is if you come back and you have a good loan spell, then that's where we're looking for you to get to the first team, because it's a hell of a jump from 18 to get into our first team playing in the national conference.
Have you seen sort of the fruits of your labour then, say, having this set plan, come out thinking, like, this is working out well, and seeing players that are fitting in this kind of ladder perfectly?
Yes and no, really. I mean, it's quite tough because we're on the back of a relegation. I think if we'd have been a League Two club, the pathway could have, carried on. But we've got people like Alex John that's out on loan to Hull City at the moment. We've got Gabby Rogers that's had some minutes with the first team and been part of the first team squad. And that's really what we're looking for. But you've got to realise in the modern game today, it's very rare for someone to break in at 17, 18 and sustain a 45-game season career. It's a little bit stop-starty in the first couple of seasons. It takes a few loan spells to go away, and that's where that you can then start to build your career.
Brilliant. We'll move on to more first team matters now. Obviously, you've returned to that fold this year. What's that been like for you, and why did you make that decision to kind of get back involved again?
Yeah, well, I don't know if I really had a choice, to be honest with you. I came in and the manager, I think it was the first day he come in, he just signed his contract and the academy staff got called over. I obviously have come up against Darren Sarll before when we played Stevenage. I think we played him out here. There was a sending off. Everyone was on the pitch. There was a bit of a melee. And no, he came in afterwards and we sort of hit it off after the game. And then I think the away game at Stevenage, I got sent off. One of the only times I've ever been sent off. So I was waiting an FA ban and a big fine. I actually called up Darren and said, look, would you back me up? And he did actually. So he helped me try and get off with a ban. So we'd come across each other before, went into a meeting and he just said, look, in the short term, can you help me out? I think I'm going to have a player coach that's going to be coming in, that's going to be able to help me. And, we'll just see how things go. So I just started the first couple of weeks. We hit it off. He saw me work. And yeah, since then it's been, we've been working as a partnership, and me and along with Darren Betchett do both roles. But the good thing is the manager comes across to the academy as well. So it's not just him taking from the academy. He's definitely given something back this year as well.
How good has that been for, say, the club's ecosystem to have the first team manager working with, say, the under 10s?
Oh, it's been brilliant. And the thing for me is he does put a lot of time in at the football club. And I think what you don't realise, and what maybe supporters don't think, is just because of the way he comes across in the press, where he's quite brash and comes across strong and just says it how it is. I think under that there's a very, there's an intellectual man that knows how to work within the academy, that's had a real good upbringing, bringing players through at Stevenage. So he knows that side of it, and he also knows the first team side as well. So it's been really good for the academy and the football club, for the players, even at the under 10s, to be able to see a pathway to come through. Because if you've got a first team manager out there on the 3G on a Monday night, a Thursday night, and a Friday night, then you know that the football club and the manager does take that side of things seriously.
Brilliant. Well, move on to some of your spell as a player now. So you enjoyed 2 promotions from the National League, and then obviously, the conference then, and now League 2 as well. How important were those for you as a manager, and say good experiences as a player as well?
Yeah, I think as a player it was, I think the season before we won the FA Trophy, and that was really the catalyst, because we'd come second, and then that was really the thing to say, now we need to step forward and go into that next season. I think the work Gary Johnson done, and the feel-good factor, and the players that was brought to the football club, it was a real good foundation for us to really go and kick on. And I remember I don't think we got off to too great a start that conference winning season, but as soon as the train started steaming, we was flying, and we were just battering teams every week. The supporters was here. We was getting 6s, 7s, 8s, 9,000s, and it was new to the football club. And that whole second half of the season, I don't think there was any sort of spare seats. It was a magic occasion, and it was also, we got sick at the end because they kept playing that "Glad all over, yes I am," but because we scored so many goals, we were just bored of that song. But it was a good time. When you look back on them, they're really fond memories, and just part of that whole start of the process of where Yeovil ended up getting to.
Brilliant. We'll move further along that process now into 2007 with Nottingham Forest, and then ultimately the Blackpool game. How was that kind of experience for you, especially with missing out at Wembley against Blackpool?
Yeah, well, I actually saw, I think it was online once, so recently, where they asked me how I felt after that. So I think leading up to the semi-finals, I'd recently just been voted in that season into Team of the Year. So that was one of the best 11 players in. I think there's only Paddy Madden, maybe, I can't remember. There's not very many players that have been voted into the PFA's Team of the Year. So we went and done the presentations. I thought my season was finished, and at the time, people at the club, after the semi-final win, which was one of the best nights, for me not to play, but to be part of that, even as an extra player, and to see that comeback. I mean, that's the biggest comeback that we'll ever see in Yeovil. It'd be very hard to try and recreate that. And it was a wonderful night. But on the way home, because we'd got to the final, I was asked if I would declare myself fit. So I said, it's gonna threaten my career. But I was talked into it. I went and had an injection, so a cortisone injection, which was sprayed around the groin area, which was very dangerous at the time. I was told by a few people not to have it done. But there was assurances that was going to be made that I would be getting on in the final. So you think to yourself, I'm on the back of one of my best seasons ever as a footballer. If the club need me, I will do that. And then, you're £500 down, you get all your family to come. You've been told you're going to get on in the final, and then all of a sudden, we don't turn up. We turned up. We arrived late. It wasn't a really good preparation to the game. People were still out on the pitch by the time we should have been out warming up. There was a few logistical errors. We had a lot of younger players at the time. It didn't really work, and me not coming on in that final, where I thought whether he was going to be winning or losing, I would get an appearance at Wembley. My family was there. It was going to be probably the last time that I ever get a chance at Wembley. It was a real low experience.
ultimately we would get that Wembley win, though. You would be as a coach, but how good was that to kind of get that vindication for it to come off in the end?
Yeah, I mean, it was a magical experience. That whole second half of the season, then the playoffs. We went up to Sheffield United. I remember, if I was ever write a book, I always remember I nearly got into big trouble because the drug testers wouldn't let us. So after the game against Sheffield, we'd just been beat 1-0. All the Sheffield United players went up to have their food upstairs in the bar. Our players was out on the coach, but two of ours that needed drug testing wasn't allowed out of the cubicle,
Yeah.
which is, that's not the rules. So I got into a heated exchange with one of them. And then when I found out that the two Sheffield United players was already allowed to go, they hadn't given their sample, but they was allowed to go upstairs and eat, but our players wasn't. So it was kicking off left, right, and centre. And I remember we didn't end up getting away till late, and it sort of hampered our preparation going, because we stayed at St George's Park. Then after that we came back. Then we played the second leg, and then we went and had a fantastic time. We trained at QPR, then we trained at Chelsea, and then obviously the build up to the final was magical. And I think Stuart Housley did a DVD on it, and I think it's about 8 hours long. It's far too long, really, but it's if you watch them last two DVDs, it just shows you behind the scenes the work that actually, and the detail that went in to get that team promoted was nothing short of miraculous. And for us to beat Brentford, who had probably 5-6 times our budget, and then go on and get to the championship, that's probably up there. Just being an assistant manager to that as one of the best days and the best experiences I've had in football.
I was speaking to Luke Ayling recently, and he said that kind of there was no kind of doubt within the side, even though they were 1-0 down to Sheffield United and going against the bigger side. How good was that kind of unity within the ranks?
Yeah, I mean, from Gary Johnson all the way down, it was we as soon as that game had finished, it was just all on to the next, and we just built up this game plan. And Darren Way did some fantastic clips of what we did well in the first game and what we was going to do in the second game. And it was, working alongside Gary Johnson, and this game plan just come up where we said, we're going to hit them so hard and fast early, and we're going to come out the traps. They're not going to be expecting it because of the first leg and how tight it was. They didn't see us coming out that strong. And when we got that early goal with Kevin Dawson, it was great movement. I think it was a slide rule pass. I think it was from Ed Upson, I think.
Yeah.
And as soon as we got that goal, you could just see them drain. It was a real hot day, and our lads, we had the legs, the energy, and the enthusiasm. And that final ball that got put in for Ed Upson's hanging header. And I always just got this memory, because I had my middle boy, Aidan, and he was on my shoulders, and I've got a picture of all the crowd on the pitch behind, and everybody was climbing. And I think Luke had Dan the kit man up on the Jones, the Dave Jones, where the substitutes sit, right along there, and all the boys were partying, and it was a magical experience. And that for me was that semi-final was just a magnificent day.
You were working with Gary Johnson then. How would you compare him to working with Darren Sarll? Are they two very different characters?
I'd say they're very similar. I think, especially of the way that they come across in the media. I think they've got real good connections with the supporters and the fans. Got the same or quite a similar temper, although the gaffer's got a bigger frame to back it up. Where Gary had a sharp tongue, but Darren Sarll's really got a little bit more of a frame behind him to put it on people. But no, he's got a great sense of humour. So did Gary, and they're very clever. And what they are, which is the most important thing, I think, is on a match day they see the game slower than it really is. The tactical substitutions, seeing patterns, seeing how the game starts to develop, knowing what substitutions to bring on within the game. They're very cool, and they've got very similar skill sets that do make them that do make them marketable for football clubs and people and leaders that can win campaigns and win leagues.
Brilliant. Right, we'll go on to some questions from the fans now.
Yeah.
First one on Twitter, which came from Vintage Yeovil. It said, "What was the best prank you ever pulled on a Yeovil teammate?"
Me and Scott Guy, it was Halloween once, and we dressed up in the Halloween costume, and we knocked on Terrell Forbes' door.
Okay.
Now we both had the screen masks on, so when Terrell Forbes has come to, I think he came to his upstairs window. We were stood over his car pushing the car. Now you've got Scott Guy at 6'4" and I'm 6'1", and we're quite thick-set guys, and we're pushing on your car outside, dressed in. Forbesy was going, "Don't make me come down there. Don't make me come down here." We were going as if to say, like, "What are you going to do?" So he had a little bit of a melt up where I think he thought, "Well, I'm going to have to go out and have a fight with these two big guys now." So, but we pulled the masks off and we let him know.
We'll go on then to another one from Alex Stone, who said, "Which loan player who went on to greater things are you most proud of guiding?"
Yeah, I think the big one would really be, there was three really that came on loan to Yeovil and ended up going to play for England, and all for different reasons. First one was Stephen Corker, that I had him in the office along with Ryan Mason when they were both. I think Stephen was younger; he was 16, and I said, I'm going to bring you here next year, and you're going to play in League One at 17 years of age. And then Ryan Mason, I think, was 6 months older than him. So I would say there isn't one, but the three that came through from Tottenham for different reasons, which was Andros, that was fantastic for us, Ryan and Stephen Corker as well. That we sort of, because of the finances of the football club, I had to think outside the box. I had a connection with Harry Redknapp, and it was it was a real good way to get some of the brightest young talent in the country and give them their first step. And a big shout out to go out to as well, John McDermott and Alex Inglethorpe as well, that sort of built up a little bit of a reputation where they would give us the young players from Tottenham.
Yeah, it was brilliant. It was a great link, wasn't it? I remember Andros Townsend it was only half a season, wasn't he? He was with us, but he kind of
That's right, yeah.
Like important spell, and he kind of kept the team ticking over really. When you gave the ball to him, he kind of always did something with it.
Yeah, well, I brought him the first year. I brought him and John Obika, and John Obika scored some vital goals to keep us up that year. And Andros was a real big. Pardon?
Goal at Hartlepool, I think I remember him scoring, was stunning.
Yeah, right over his shoulder. He just hit it in the top corner. Yeah, he was. He was another one, very, very good player. But there's been a few that we've brought through and that's gone on. Alex McCarthy was another one that we took really early, maybe too early, but had a fantastic year with us. And I don't think people realise, like, back then we was in League One, and in League One we had Southampton, Leicester, Charlton, Sheffield Wednesday, Leicester. So we was going to all these places every other week, and people were still expecting Yeovil with the budget that we had at the time to be competing. When we went away to Southampton, and Ricky Lambert was worth more than our whole budget. So I remember going away to Sheffield Wednesday and going 2-0 up, and then ended up getting, I think 2 players got sent off that day, and we ended up drawing. I think we ended up drawing the game, but we had a player on loan, Stephen Henderson, that had probably one of the best performances I'd seen in goal in all my life. He was everywhere that night, and so we've had some good players that have come through the system and come through the loan system as well, but. That was never an ideal way that I wanted to work, but for us to try and compete at a technical and tactical level, we wasn't going to be able to bring 7 or 8 from the conference to come into that League One team. We needed to go and get the best number 10, the best number 9 that would be under 21.
Brilliant. Right, so just 2 more now.
Yep.
Simon, which school would you have most liked to play in, and why?
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough one, really, because I'd quite like to have played in the League One playoff team. I'm not so sure I'd have got into that team with Dan Burn and was it Dan Burn?
It was Dan Burn.
Dan Burn and Byron Webster. I thought they were fantastic. So it's no good me saying I want to be a part of a team that I wouldn't have played in. No, I think the years that I played, I really enjoyed the players that I played with, and Yeah, I think that first year in winning the conference, that was probably my favourite time in football because of the way that we were playing. I remember Burton coming down to us with Nigel Clough, and he tried to play against us, and it was embarrassing. We was on fire that day, but we could mix it up. We could play long, we could play short. If the game got ugly, we had enough character to oversee and overcome, and we could always adapt to what the opposition done. And we just went everywhere and took names and just won games, and it was a fantastic feeling because it had never been done before within the football club. So to get promoted out of the conference and to be part of that first ever league season, it was, yeah, that was a magical time to be at the club.
It's quite nice that you're talking about that conference win, really, because the next question is, where do you see Yeovil in 5 years' time, and would that be one of the objectives within that 5 year period?
We want to get promoted this year, so that was the aim. So obviously, with everything that's gone on, we don't know, but yeah, I wouldn't be saying 5 years away. I would say that it's got to be a lot more immediate. And the manager didn't come here for a 5-year, 10-year plan. He's come here to try and win, and to try and win leagues. And I'm fully on board with that as well. So for us, far away.